So what do we do with Christmas? The story of which we're hearing the choir sing and the kids read, and that we'll rehearse again on Christmas Eve. It's outrageous, what we are preparing to celebrate. It's outrageous that the great creator of all that is, at a particular point in time, in a particular place, was born. Think about that for a minute. God, beyond whom there is no other, without whom no thing could be. God, the power above all power, the depth beneath all depth. One silent, holy night, that let's say 1:37 a.m., we don't know for sure, was pushed out of a young woman's birth canal, slimy with afterbirth, crying with his first breath, and born into this world. And if that was not enough, the situation into which God was born heaps layer upon layer of outrageousness. Born in Bethlehem about 2,000 years ago, his mother named Mary and had a boyfriend named Joe. I mean, could there be two more normal-sounding people in a more forgettable place at a more uninteresting time in all the world? And yet we say this was when, and this is how, and these were the people to whom God interpreted God's self to the world. I mean, what was God's point? To come as unimpressively as possible? They were poor, uneducated peasantry. As Jews, they were a hardly tolerated minority in the Roman Empire. She was unwed and a woman. Joseph, the man in the equation, could take no credit for the conception, which put Mary at a huge risk of shame, if not even execution, in that patriarchal culture at the time. The most in-the-know people of the day barely blinked an eye, would not have even noticed this birth of God, so quietly and discreet did he come, had not a load of wealthy foreigners come asking about him and calling him a king. That perked King Herod's ears up, and he did what all despot rulers do. He organized a campaign to rid the country of the troublemakers, saying something like, and I quote, "They're garbage. Their region stinks. They do nothing but complain. Let them go back to where they come from," or something along those lines. It's what all despots do. Scapegoat the easiest people they can find to blame for the country's troubles. It's the oldest story in the book. The Jews have known this truth throughout their history. And up to last night, the Gazans have come to know it. The Ukrainians, the immigrants in our own country know this dehumanizing and scapegoating practice of despots. It's one of the oldest stories, and the way God comes as poor refugee child of the Jewish people is in direct contradiction to that story. But unfortunately, it doesn't bring the story to a conclusion. And this is because God comes not violently to right all our wrongs, but God comes as love. And love will not force its way even when facing despots. Love won't collude with tyrants either. But as far as a method of ridding the world of them, love is hardly a very efficient tool. This is why 2,000 years later, such tedious power mongers are still alive and kicking and making a mess of things. And yet Christmas still insists that God comes small, insignificant, and with love. So then what do we do with Christmas? when it runs directly counter to all our notions of power and status, respect, control, domination, all of it systematically snubbed when the source of all meaning revealed himself to this world in an embarrassing, weak, pitiful, scandalous way. What do we do with that? I do not know. I mean, I do know what we usually do with it. We package it in pretty paper and domesticate it and tie a bow on the whole thing and say, "Oh, isn't that adorable of God to come as a baby?" No, it's not adorable. It's sacrilege to how we live as Americans, how God comes. It's scandalous to even those of us Christians, many of whom think we should make our country great by marrying state power with our religion. We are so not okay, actually, with the weak way God comes, as poor, as refugee, and eventually as executed criminal. But that's God for you. That's God for you. To the question, where is God in all this injustice, violence, suffering, and evil that's in the world? Christmas will give the same answer given by the Jewish writer Elie Wiesel, witnessing a young Jewish boy being hung in a prison camp. Asked, where is God in this? He said, God is there hanging on the gallows. Christmas does not offer that answer in despair, but in a promise of solidarity, accompaniment in the deepest sorrows and greatest sufferings of being human. God is there, suffering alongside the victims whose Hanukkah joy turned to ashes in Sydney, and the victims of Brown University. I'm not sure how satisfactory an answer that is to anyone evaluating it intellectually, that God suffers with we who suffer. But to those who experience it, who know God is with them in their anguish, considering the course of history, we've not much liked the answer. We still feel like we can improve upon God's idea of how God should come, and so we try to take the reins of power, the ring of power, believing that we are different, that we are the ones crowned to finally get this right, but we are wrong. We're always wrong. As the Apostle Paul puts it, God's foolishness is wiser than human wisdom. God's weakness is more powerful than human strength. God's degradation is more honorable than all human honor. And Jesus, his birth, the way he lived his life, the way he died, the way he returned in forgiveness and love, all exemplifies this radical, scandalous, outrageous nature of the one we call God. So what do we do with Christmas arriving for another year amid such strife and hate? If we truly believe that God, beyond whom there is no other, without whom no thing could be, God, the power above all power, the depth beneath all depth, one night was born to a poor, unwed Jewish woman from Podunk, Bethlehem, Palestine, who had to run to seek refuge from a violent king. If we truly believe that that is how God comes, then what do we do with Christmas? And what does Christmas ask of us? I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. But I guess we could start by thanking God that the story is still told after all these years, despite how we tend to ignore its outrageousness. Deo gratias, that's the story, that the story is still told despite us. Deo gratias. Deo gratias, thanks be to God for how God comes. And maybe we pray this year, as we pray this year, we'll allow Christmas and the God of love to have its way with us. Deo gratias. Thanks be to God. Reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. He came to what was his own, but to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God. They were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth.